All right, hey everybody. My name's Dave. Checking in for another episode of VibeWire. So this episode, I wanted to address this component right here. So I really like the look of this, but this is really created with the idea of a podcast in mind. I don't have an RSS feed yet, so everything is going through YouTube. And if you click on any of these play buttons, you'll see it'll take you to YouTube. I might change that at some point, but just to keep things simple for now, I'm not going to be doing that. And I thought, it might be nice to replace this component right here before really start to push this thing out here, because this could get a little confusing because this doesn't work at all right now, even though it looks really cool. And so I wanted to replace it with something equally cool. And I thought one thing that would be fun to do would be to replace this with a 3D generated component here. So I wanted to kind of show you how I would do that. And I wanted to show you a couple of the tools that I used. So I've already been experimenting a little bit. I'll do another one today. But the first one I tried was Meshy. There's a couple of these tools out on the market right now. This one worked pretty well. Here's a couple of the experiments that I did here. Here's the logo. And so the way that it works basically is, you just upload an image and it will convert that image to a 3D rendering. So the image I started with here, you can see there's a lot of detail here, the wiring and everything underneath the image. Looks really cool, but it's really hard to render that well in 3D, as you can see here. So I kind of switched the idea. What if we do sort of a cool, like retro video game console sort of a thing here? So that ended up looking a lot better than the other one. Still a little bit off. The title wasn't correct here. If you just do like the straight up video game console, actually looks great. Not as much detail to worry about or text. I did another couple where I tried different models and things, and was still having some trouble with the actual logo here. Even though it got it right on the side, I like this little detail. It's pretty cool. A couple more attempts here. This one was maybe the closest. But overall, really cool tool, and really like this. I've ended up going with another one, though, which I got some better results from. As you can see right here, it just nailed the logo. It looks really good overall. I think this is what I'm going to go with. But I want to try it again and see, just to show you the entire process from beginning to end, how that worked. So this is the original rendering I did. These are the images over here. A couple more that I played with. There's the other console. Ultimately, I would like to do something kind of more complex where in order to listen to an episode, you kind of like push in the game cartridge to the console here. I think that'd be a lot of fun, but that's probably going to be beyond the scope of this video. I did another one recently with just the logo, and it had a lot of trouble with that too. I actually like the other. I like Meshy's version of this better because you can actually read it. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how I do this from scratch. So from the beginning, I'll skip over this part because it was pretty straightforward. So like I said, I had the logo. I actually put this in the ChatGPT and I said, generate me a game cartridge that includes the logo. A pretty simple prompt. And it came up with this. So this is what we're actually going to use to drop into Z3D AI and see what that comes up with again. I already know it can do it well, so I'll fall back to that if I have any problems this time. But let's just give that a shot. So very simple. They actually have a really good free plan. So if you sign up and get it, you'll get a bunch of credits. It only costs 25 credits per generation. They only have one model right now. So you don't have to worry about subscribing to a premium model or something. It just works really well. So we'll go ahead and generate this. And this generally takes, a couple minutes. So I'll probably stop the video here and come back to you in just a minute as soon as this is done. All right, and it finished rendering in just about 2 minutes. And here is the result. Looks just as good as the last one. Nice and clean. I can read the logo on the front. Looks really good. It's even got a little bit of a 3D like paint sort of effect on there that I like. And one thing I wanted to mention is that ideally you would have a couple of images to include. So I'm actually like pushing it pretty hard to just do it off of one image. I'm pretty impressed that it was able to do that. So they actually recommend 1 to 5 images, and they even have a little tool here where you can kind of create, use AI to generate your own. If you don't want to use ChatGPT, they kind of have that built in for you. I did try having ChatGPT rotate the image, and it just, if someone has some ideas on how to make that work, I was not successful in getting I wanted to kind of rotate and view it from different 3-dimensional angles, but it really just wanted to spin around in circles, and I wasn't getting anywhere with it. So luckily this works really well, and at this point we're pretty much ready to export this. So you can go down to the export model option here, and there's a few different options here. These might be for different, game development platforms and things. For web dev, which is what we're going to be doing, we want to put this on a website. The standard model for that would be the GLB model here. So let's export that. All right, and so now we're ready to pull this into our website. And one thing I do want to mention is that this model ends up being almost 9 megabytes. So that's a lot more than you'd normally want to serve for any image or anything from a website, and this could take a little while. I don't have a ton of traffic going to the website, so I might have to change this at some point. It's just kind of a cool, fun feature to play around with. If you're getting a ton of traffic to your website, then that's going to end up increasing your I/O costs associated with it. So you might, if you have a ton of traffic, a ton of people downloading this from your server, it could definitely increase the cost of serving your website. So definitely keep that in mind before you go and implement something like this. This is really just kind of for fun, and I don't have a ton of traffic, so it's not something I'm worried about. That warning out of the way, I already pulled over another version of this. I'll just gonna delete that real quick so we can see the whole process. I'm gonna call this VibeWire cartridge 2. All right, and I already know where I want to put this. So if we switch over to our page here, if we go back to the VibeWire website, so you can see this right here. I want to replace this whole component, and luckily it's already been broken out nicely into this podcast console component here. So all that logic is in there for displaying that. I'm going to just replace that. I'm actually just going to tell Claude to change that for me. I'm going to downgrade this to Sonnet. I don't really need Opus for this. This shouldn't be that complex of a thing to figure out. So let's go ahead and write our prompt here. So we're going to say one aspect of this is it would be nice if we could say add VibeWire cartridge and reference it like that. But as soon as I do that, it disappears for some reason. You see that again. VibeWire cartridge, GLB, and it just disappears. So I'm going to copy the name of it so it knows what I'm talking about. And it can see this podcast console reference at least. So you can see line 88 to 86. And I'll just say, please replace podcast console component with a 3D rendering component that shows the name VibeWire cartridge model. All right, and we'll just hit run. And this is going to use while it's doing that, I know it's going to use the Three.js library. I just want to talk about that real quick. All right, so this is the website for Three.js. Three.js is just a library that allows you to connect into some of the advanced kind of WebGL processing APIs via JavaScript. So you can do some really interesting things with 3D on the web. People will create games with it. They'll create interactive websites with, this looks like one right here. Let's take a look at what that does. Kind of 3D imaging. So you can see this looks like a regular website, but I'm kind of able to spin this around and do some interesting things with it. I can probably, if I scroll here, yeah, so super cool stuff that you can do here. I don't know how functional it is, but it's definitely fun to play with. And so yeah, and ChatGPT, Cursor, the AI models. This is the sort of thing that if you see 3D games that people have vibe coded, they're well aware of this Three.js library and can do some pretty nice things for you really easily. So if you want to, create a simple 3D game or something, this is something that you'd be using. Okay, and so it looks like our rendering was done. Claude has created this new cartridge 3D component for us that references, so we use GLTF, preloads our GLB model. We have some toggles that we can kind of, and parameters that we can mess around with if we need to kind of control the snapping, the speed, the zoom. So that'll be something to play around with eventually maybe. This does look, might want to control the lighting a little bit maybe, because this does look a little bit blown out here. But generally, it looks good. It looks like I didn't even know they had the the prongs underneath the cartridge like that. That's cool. But yeah, it's generally working. It's on our website. Now we actually have a component here that actually works, unlike the podcast controls we kind of started with. Let's see if we can fix the lighting here. I don't know much about the Three.js library, so I could maybe read into the documentation a little bit, but that's what we have Cursor here for. So let's just see if we can fix that for us. Do we have anything? Spotlight, position, angle, penumbra, spotlight cone. Let's just see what happens if we just turn that down a little bit. Just cut that in half. Let's see what that looks like. No, that's still pretty bright. All right. Let's just see what Claude can do for us. Oh, we've got 3 different types of light on here. I didn't even notice that. We've got ambient light, spotlight. Let's just get rid of the spotlight entirely. And maybe the point light too. Just do some nice ambient lighting. No? Alright. Claude saved me. Okay, so it looks like the updates Claude made kind of on the where I was going with it. Reduce the intensity. There's a setting down here I didn't see earlier. It was set to studio lighting and they changed it to night, which I'm interested to see how that changes things. Let's switch back over to our web view here and see what whoa, that's too dark now. Interesting. I wonder what presets we can use here. Dawn, forest. Let's see what forest does for us. That seems nice. Still a little dark. What if we up the intensity now? That's better. Alright, that's not so blinding to the eyes. So we got our nice 3D component loaded here. That looks pretty good. That's mostly what I wanted. I might add some additional title and styling around here, just a little bit, to explain what this is. But overall, I think people will get the idea, and it's not a requirement for listening to the podcast or anything. It's just kind of a fun thing for people to play with that takes up a little bit of space while I work on building out some content here. There's one other thing I wanted to mention is something that I see in a lot of apps where people are kind of vibe coding it, and I did it myself. So this V0 app at the top here, let's just fix that real quick. So if you go in the layout right there, there's some metadata, and this will be displayed in different ways depending on how your website is being linked to or shown. So this is important to update just because it's the defaults. Definitely it's going to look vibe coded or it's going to look amateur if this stuff isn't updated. So easy way to fix that. Take a look and see if your project has this as well. If you're starting something new, I'm just going to change this to VibeWire and a daily. There we go. All right. And now our tab is updated. I did the .ico earlier. So yeah, that's a quick behind the scenes episode. A nice feature that I think with the advent of AI 3D models, this is going to be, we're going to see a lot more just kind of fun things on websites and fun design quirks and tweaks here and there that just, because it's going to be so much easier to build websites, why wouldn't you make it more fun to use? So just wanted to kind of share a little bit of that and one of those ways that I'm hoping to be able to do it as well, and hope to be able to make some fun updates to this in the future like I mentioned earlier. So then that's it for this episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in.